Good news, smoked beer fans. The official glass of This Week in Rauch Beer is now back in stock on our website. Visit beeredge.com/merch to get yours today. And be sure to join This Week in Rauch Beer on Facebook or follow at TW Rauch Beer on Twitter and Instagram. Welcome to Drink Beer, Think Beer, the podcast that gets to the bottom of every pint. I'm John Hall. Other Half is a brewery synonymous with IPA, but when you head to their location in upstate New York, you'll find more than just haze. Today, I'm talking with Felipe Higgins, the head brewer in the Finger Lakes, about the Outpost and its robust mixed fermentation program. But first, we're able to bring you this show each week, thanks to the companies that want to support independent journalism in the beer space. If you'd like to learn more about our surprisingly affordable rates, please reach out to sponsor@beeredge.com. And be sure to check out Stomp Stickers. Stomp is a proud member of the Brewers Association that produces a wide variety of printed brewery products, such as beer labels, keg collars, coasters, beer boxes, and much more. Stomp's website features an easy-to-use design tool, low quantity orders, fast turnaround times, and free domestic shipping. Visit stompstickers.com and use code CRAFTBEER15 for 15% off your first order. Athletic Brewing Company's innovative process allows them to brew great tasting craft beer without the alcohol. From IPAs to stouts to golden ales and more, they offer a full selection of beers starting at only 50 calories. Now you can keep your head clear and enjoy the refreshing taste of beer anytime, anywhere. Place an order today at athleticbrewing.com and get free shipping on 2 6-packs or more. New customers can also get 10% off of their entire order with the code BEEREDGE10, limit 1 per customer. Anenzi Hops is a cooperative of master growers whose legend and cultivars have been crafted for over 150 years with creativity and passion to produce some of the world's finest hops. With a dedicated hop breeding program and farming knowledge handed down through the generations, the current day master growers proudly provide 18 unique New Zealand hop varieties to the world. Visit nzhops.co.nz or find them on Instagram, Facebook, or LinkedIn at NZHops Ltd to learn more. While the announcement a few years back might have surprised some, internally at Other Half, the move to a brewery space in New York's Finger Lakes region, just south of Rochester, made sense. The brewery had done a number of pop-ups in the area, and consumer reception was strong. When a brewery sitting on 8 acres suddenly closed down in the town of Bloomfield, the brewery jumped at the chance, foregoing a city location for a more rural one. This presented the opportunity for the brewery to push deeper into mixed fermentation and gave Felipe Higgins, who had worked previously in the brewery's Brooklyn location, a chance to move north and focus on beers that deeply interested him as a brewer. I was in the Rochester area last weekend and had the chance to visit the brewery and drink some lager as well as some haze. Felipe was out of town, so we recorded this conversation after I got home and after he got back to the brewery. He's really leaning into the local flora, giving the brewery's coolship a good workout. And between foraging and working with local farmers, he's finding new ingredients to incorporate into beers, many of which have been brewed over the last 3 years, but have yet to be released to the public. Felipe also talks about the Clean program, how the IPAs and other beers being produced differ from the other brewery locations, but still complement the overall portfolio. We start off by talking about the location itself and the vision for the site and how it differs from the original. Here's our conversation.
Our intention was always kind of to have, like you said, have its own, a bit of its own unique character, but kind of a hybrid of both those things that you mentioned. And it took us a while of kind of, trying things out and working through different things to really kind of find our own unique voice. But I believe the goal was always to create something that, in its DNA was, uniquely Other Half and still had that sort of fun essence, but while also branching out and kind of creating its own voice in a way. Yeah.
How have you achieved that?
I would think, obviously it's taken a lot of time, but one of our main goals is working on this mixed fermentation program and really trying to push that to the consumer base up here and kind of educate people about that. It seems like while people do enjoy hazy IPAs, which we're well known for, here, there's definitely like a different type of beer drinker, and a different consumer base. And so I think when we started out, a lot of it was, trying to have basically the same essence that we had in Brooklyn, but also maybe brew a few different styles of beer and whatnot. And I think we've kind of come into our own as our own standalone facility, and with a fair amount of our own products. So kind of a hybrid of Brooklyn and upstate and all that.
So, I mean, there are regional drinking preferences. So you found that a lot of the mixed ferm that you're doing speaks to the local customers in maybe a way that it wouldn't in some other areas?
Well, I think so. I think like a lot of what we're trying to do with the mixed ferm program is create products that are, tell a story about this region and are kind of uniquely tied to here. Products that, using ingredients that you can't really find anywhere else. So
What's a good example of that?
Well, I would say, for example, I think one of the beers that I left for you was Field Studies Lilac. Lilac, if you're not aware, is the Rochester city flower.
I was not aware of that.
Yeah, there's a large lilac festival here. It's on the logo on everything from trash cans to municipal buildings and things like that.
Clearly, I wasn't paying attention when I was in town. All right.
Yeah, absolutely. It's everywhere. So something along the lines of that. We made a beer called Field Studies Lilac. Field Studies is kind of like our lower ABV mixed ferm foraged adjunct series. So we were able to connect with a local lilac farm who, the majority of their business was selling trees. They really didn't do much with the flowers at all. So we looked into how we might be able to use that in a beer in a new and fun, interesting way. We were able to go over there and fill about 2 contractor bags full of fresh lilac flowers. Whoa. And all right. We cold steeped those in our kettle overnight, basically made a large batch of lilac water, and then used that as 100% of our brewing water.
Cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
So,
all right.
Something like that. And that was kind of like a connection of just, just through acquaintances and through friends. It kind of just came to be. And I feel like trying to make more beers like that are connected to the area and connected to the people around us, and things that you can't really, or that you're not really seeing people do in Brooklyn, so to speak. I feel like, at least we're trying to make that connection with the customer base to create something different and a new experience for them to drink.
And I guess for the people who understand the importance of lilac, that's something where when you're putting it out on social, when you're talking about it in and around town, will pique the interest because it is something so familiar.
Absolutely.
Are there people who make the pilgrimage from the city, from Brooklyn, from other regions to you all?
Here and there, definitely. I think we often times have people who are just somewhat in the area by happenstance, and
taking that long detour off of 90.
Yeah, exactly. And had heard about us and had wanted to check us out, but it is a bit of a far drive, and not many people find themselves out here by accident. So and especially with the availability of our other beers, in places from DC to now Philly coming up, multiple spots in Brooklyn. We don't get as many people driving all the way out here just to get those beers, but there still are some diehards out there. I'll say that.
So you found though then that the tastes of the consumers are jiving then with a lot of the mixed ferm that you're doing, and I'm guessing part of that also has to be the wine industry in the region.
Yeah, exactly. I'd like to say that, you know, people definitely do enjoy the mixed rums. We're still kind of trying to figure out, in a way, how to kind of tap into that wine scene as well. You know, we do. I feel like a lot of our beers do kind of straddle that line between beer and wine, and it's more about, for us, just figuring out how to properly educate people about these beers, and just get them to give them a chance. And usually once they do, it's, you know, it's a very positive experience, and they're curious about more.
Yeah.
But I will say in general too, you know, we, like I said, while people do enjoy the hazy beers and the hazy IPAs and things like that, you know, every now and then we'll get, say, like a brown ale or, you know, a red ale from our Williamsburg outpost. And it seems like consumers do kind of enjoy some of those more old school styles up here as well.
Well, I mean, when you think about the popularity of Genesee and Labatt and, you know, some of the more classic styles in that area, yeah, that sort of tracks. That makes sense. And I imagine your the pilsners that you guys are doing and the lagers do fairly well.
Oh yeah, they crush it. That's for sure. Yeah.
So I saw the coolship as I was walking in, and it looks like it's gotten some love. It looks like it's gotten some use, and I noticed when I was tasting through two of the beers that you sent along, the wine beers. There's one with Cabernet Franc, and then I'm not going to be able to pronounce this.
So the Catawba.
Catawba. Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm so terrible with some of these. But you were talking on the label. Yeah, but I'm going to make you say it so that, you know, I'm not going to butcher it.
Perfect.
I'm a terrible host. But you're talking about the house culture that really comes off on these beers. Having been open for a few years now, I imagine that culture has evolved, and you're working to get it to where you want it to be. Is that accurate?
Absolutely. I mean, you know, full disclosure, we actually have, I would say, multiple different house cultures that we're still, you know, still brewing with, still evaluating, still kind of figuring out how to manipulate in ways that are interesting and give us different results. So, you know, a big thing about the program is that, I would say 90 to 95% of the yeast that we use is all wild captured and propagated in-house. So pretty much none of it, except for a few Brett strains here and there, has been bought from a yeast bank or a lab or anything like that, which I think has been an important part of it for us.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're sitting on so much land there. It's what, 8 acres?
8 acres. That's correct.
So there's a lot going on in the area. There's a lot happening just right outside your brewing door. As you've been thinking about house cultures and wild cultures, are there flavors? Are there aromas? Are there, you know, those intangibles that you think have emerged from just being where you are?
I think so, for sure. I think, you know, just the landscape in general. It's one of the things that's actually caused me to kind of fall in love with the area and really want to, you know, stay here and keep creating. But everything from the wineries to all the agriculture and the fruit farmers, to, you know, just the microflora in the air on different fruits. There's no lack of inspiration, and it, you know, it kind of keeps the creative juices going. I would say that there's definitely a lot of flavors out there that, you know, are still waiting to be, you know, pulled out of different things. You know, like the springtime air, or, you know, a pear on a pear tree, you know, down at our garden center. Some of our house cultures have come from things like that, from wild black raspberries or you know, peaches as well. So I think there's like a constant there's constant opportunity out there to create new flavors, which I think is something that's really special about this region. And not only to get yeast derived flavors from these wild bugs, but then to bring them back around and bring them back to the things that they originated from, to kind of bring things full circle, I think is a really special thing out here as well.
So when you're thinking about putting a recipe together, when you're thinking about putting a new beer that's going to use one of these house cultures, can you talk me through how that comes together, where you start, where the inspiration strikes, and how it eventually results in the finished product?
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, when we're first starting to play with these cultures, it's kind of important to keep the recipe as simple as possible. What we're really trying to do is evaluate what the yeast, what the bacteria is contributing. So a lot of our first experiments are, pretty simple, majority Pilsner malt, maybe a little bit of wheat, but lower ABV, just to try and give it, its true expression. A lot of times we're also not using a whole lot of hops. So I like to kind of start out with, trying to see what the culture is like in its full stripped down version without anything inhibiting it. I think usually the next step that we take after that is that we'll start to play with hops, IBUs a little bit, just to kind of tamper down any bacteria, see what that's giving us. And then after that, we kind of start, adding more things in, more complex malt bills, and seeing where that takes us as well. It's an interesting process because, it took us about 2 years before we even released the first beer. And some of those beers we still brewed in year one, are just starting to, show their true character now. But I think the important part is that we've just, kept creating, kept trying a bunch of different stuff, that we're able to evaluate at this point, and then determine, okay, now this is going to make a great base for, letting these wine grapes, show through, or things along those lines.
And you have the time to just let these beers sit until they're ready, or until you think they're ready.
Absolutely. I will say that is one of the great things about working for a company like Other Half, that we have such a strong brand, and there is such a demand for a lot of the beers that we're already known for. So as we make those beers, which is the bulk of the business that we do, it allows us to kind of give all these beers the time they need to fully mature, and to fully be ready. It is a bit painstaking to wait that long for things. I don't necessarily consider myself the most patient person in the world, but this program has definitely taught me that patience pays off in the end. And we have some bottles that have sat conditioning for well over a year, and it took that long before it actually started coming around. And some of them have surprised us in pretty amazing ways.
What's an example of one of those beers?
I would say there's one we have not released just yet, but it was a single barrel that we conditioned on, I believe it was Riesling and Cayuga wine lees. And it something about it just tasted off. It had this kind of musty aroma, and we basically just said, okay, we'll probably never release that. We set it off aside in a corner for a year and a half or so, and recently cracked a bottle, and it's giving off these like beautiful sort of like coconut, pineapple flavors and aromas right now. And so that's when we're like, wow, okay, like just being patient and letting it kind of do its thing and not trying to rush these bottles out can actually be beneficial in the end.
I'm always curious about when brewers make the decision to either try something again or to dump it, right? So if a year and a half ago you're trying it and you're like, this is not good, this is not what we want it to be, why not just get rid of it then? Is it there's faith that it could change, or had you tried it again, 2 weeks ago and it was still not great, would that have been time to go? I don't know. I'm not like advocating for you to like toss stuff, but I know
No,
you
absolutely.
also don't want to put out stuff that is not what you want it to be.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's an important part of it as well, is that we never want to put out a beer that we're not 100% behind. I think also is it's especially something that's been put in the bottle that I thought was tasting nice and did have potential when it went into bottle. It's kind of hard for me to let go of that. And for me, at least, we're lucky enough that we have a pretty large warehouse space where we can store bottles.
Sure.
So I'm like, let's at least just give it a year and give it some time, and see if it comes around. And if a year or two from now we're still not happy with it, then at that point we can definitely send it down the drain. Obviously, like with a program like that, that's a part of the process in a way. We've definitely had to let go of a few barrels here and there that had gotten way too much ethyl acetate on them, or way too acidic, or things along those lines. But I think you always have to have a little bit of faith. And oftentimes, beers have surprised us. I think that one beer I gave you, Another Day in Paradise, which is our first mixed culture we put out, kind of just tasting through that as it bottle conditioned and evolved, because that's a whole process in itself. The first couple times I opened those bottles, it was tasting like apple juice and pennies. Kind of, it had this like weird metallic thing, this weird sort of like rotten fermented fruit thing, and then 3 to 6 months later, it kind of completely turned around. So I think you got to have kind of faith in those microorganisms, especially things like Brett and their restorative qualities, because oftentimes they'll surprise you with it. And so luckily enough, we have the space to kind of leave things alone and forget about them, and we're constantly brewing new beers and blending new beers, so we can focus our attention elsewhere and not be so hyper focused on that one particular one that isn't quite where we want it just yet.
Is there a target number of how many beers you want to do per year?
Not at the moment. We've kind of just been going organically with that project. I will say at this point we have about 40 different bottles that are conditioning currently. So I would love to, I think the initial goal was, whatever we can get out, let's get out. And then once we started building a little bit of a stock, it was, let's put out at least once a month and start making it sort of a regular thing. And now at this point we have, that nice inventory of, a vastly huge variety of different beers, from fruited ones to fully spontaneous ones to blends to all sorts of different things. So I think at this point we're kind of trying to reevaluate and see if we can release them in a way to make it kind of more interesting for the consumer, and having multiple different bottles at the same time that are similar but have differences, like different wine grape focused ones, just to really try to make it an interesting drinking experience for the customer.
I imagine, because Other Half as a brewery, as a brand, has so much excitement behind it, such rabid fans, some detractors, but a lot of attention paid to it, that there's got to be some pressure for every beer that you put out, because it is going to be scrutinized by beer nerds, or folks who have a little too much internet courage.
Yeah.
Does that how does that impact you, if at all, as a brewer? That attention, that focus that some give you.
I think it's kind of a double-edged sword in a way. I think I have a lot of faith in myself, as well as my team, and our palates. So I think when we all collectively decide that we think something tastes good, there's the hope that that'll track and travel on with the people who are buying it and consuming it. I think there's also a funny thing to think about with like I oftentimes wonder if these beers were released, say, by just a small local brewery in the area, if people would give them the same sort of attention or untapped rating or things like that. So there is something about the name it's nice that I feel like it gives us a bit of a leg up. So it takes a little bit of pressure off. But I think in general, I have a lot of confidence in what we do and what we put out, that I'm not super worried about it most of the time. I think a lot of us are we're more just focused and interested in the process and making the beers and drinking the beers, and less kind of focused on what people are saying about them. I mean, at least us and the brewers, I'm sure our analytics team and higher ups in corporate down in Brooklyn may be a little more focused on Untapped and stuff. But I think in general, it's not as impactful in our day to day as one might think.
I mean, that's good, because otherwise you start to get distracted, I imagine, and it's oh well, maybe we shouldn't do this after all. And you start to doubt yourself. But having confidence in yourself and the team, I think it's just smart for any brewery.
I think if you start worrying too much about those kind of things, then you start making what you think people want you to make, as opposed to making what you truly feel that you want to make. And that's a big distinction for me.
More in just a moment. But first, thanks to these companies who support Drink Beer, Think Beer, and help keep it on the air. Stomp Stickers is a reliable resource for printed items such as beer labels and boxes, keg collars, coasters, and more. Visit stompstickers.com and use code craftbeer15 for 15% off your first order. Athletic Brewing Company's innovative process allows them to brew great tasting craft beer without the alcohol. Place an order today at athleticbrewing.com and get free shipping on 2 6-packs or more. New customers can also get 10% off of their entire order with code BEEREDGE10, limit 1 per customer. And NZ Hops. It's a cooperative of master growers whose legend and cultivars have been crafted for over 150 years to produce some of the world's finest hops. NZ Hops are like no others, unique in their flavors and aromas. Visit nzhops.co.nz to explore more. And now, back to the conversation. As I was driving around, I was noticing everything was snow covered, but there are a lot of farms in the area, and it seems like you're using wine grapes, you're using lees, you're playing into that region. What about some of the other things that are being grown in the area? Have you had much of a chance to explore and to try to figure out what else could fit into some of your beers that's being grown locally?
I mean, we use a lot of local malt. I will say, again, about 90% of the malt that we use for the program is all New York State malt. We have a malt house right up the road, Murmuration Malts, which is great. They're about a mile away. But in terms of other stuff, I mean, obviously, the fruit farmers, getting to know all the farmers at the different orchards. It's surprising how many different fruits there are out there that I've never heard of, that are, fun to experiment with. We did a beer pretty recently with these French melons that one farm was growing just for, as kind of a test for a seed breeder in Florida, and they did nothing with the melons. I feel like I'm going to butcher the name. Sharontai melons, I believe.
I don't know that. Yeah.
Okay. But they're supposed to be well renowned for, being super aromatic and super sweet. So we did a fun little beer with that and sea salt that's conditioning right now. There's June berries. I'm not sure if you're familiar with those, but they're kind of like a cousin of blueberry in a way, a little more earthy, a little more tannic. But those are fun. I think also, there's a lot of kind of opportunity for foraged ingredients out here. That is one thing I'd like to get a little more into. Like I mentioned, we did that lilac beer, which was fun. Another one in that series that we've yet to release, we did a staghorn sumac one. We have a dandelion one on the way. And, you know, I feel like we're just kind of scratching the surface of what this area has to offer. Like I said, between the fruit farms and the stuff we can forage and the wineries, it's kind of just limitless. You know, the more we're getting to know the area and the people out here, the more, you know, the more we're learning about what's available and what we can play with. And yeah, it's fun. I mean, every different season that comes around has something new to offer. So it kind of just keeps us going.
You mentioned using local malts. Is that something that you were doing when you were down in Brooklyn, or just by nature of the place, not as much?
Just by nature of the place, not as much. Obviously, they're a bit more expensive, and you know, on that larger scale, we were just using a lot more kind of like Briess malt and things like that. I think, but just by the nature of this product, though, we kind of wanted to make something that was inherently New York State. And so using local malt was super important to us. And luckily we found, you know, a great malt house right near us. And there are multiple other ones in the area as well that we've also played around with. So it's great connecting with them.
Yeah. And I think it is a great way to connect with folks and to you know, play up the local angle, you know, because people enjoy that. And I'm not saying this in a cynical way. Have there been learning curves? Like, is there a difference using local malts as opposed to, you know, what you might have been getting from some of the larger, better known suppliers? I think you said Briess, you know, like, is there?
Yeah, a little bit. I think, you know, luckily our local maltster, their malt has been very comparable in terms of, you know, sugar content and extraction and proteins, and it's been a pretty easy transition for that program. It really hasn't been too much of an issue, you know, aside from here and there, different kernel sizes and whatnot, and having to adjust our mill. But for the most part, we've had a lot of success and really enjoyed what we've been getting. And also, you know, the benefit of having them be right down the road, anything we want to change, any, you know, special requests that we have, they're always open to listen to us and adjust things as needed on the fly, which is a huge benefit.
That's cool. I like that. It was hard not to notice as I was sitting at the bar, looking out over your snowy fields there, some hop trellises in the not so far distance. What's going to be growing on those fairly soon? What's coming up on those vines?
I'm not sure what we're going to do with that just yet. So that was from our the previous existing brewery that was there. I believe they had a bunch of hops just sort of decoratively. And if you go out there in the summertime, you know, walk through the area, there's just tons of hops just growing wild all over the ground there. I imagine it's, you know, varieties like Cascade and things like that. But we haven't really made a plan yet. I mean, the dream was always, you know, to slowly start planting fruit trees and kind of turning that whole area into orchards, and, you know, start growing berry bushes and things along those lines that we could eventually start using in our beer down the line. But obviously, you know, with the pandemic and everything that's been going on, as well as all of our expansions, it's kind of taken a back seat for a while. But ideally, you know, that's kind of the long-term vision out there.
Can we talk about your clean side?
Yeah, absolutely.
As I was sitting at the bar, people came in. They were getting a lot of cans to go. Nice. And they were ordering a lot of various shades of haze. And everybody seemed to be, you know, fairly happy and excited about what they were getting. Is there a difference between what Brooklyn is making, what Philly and DC is doing? even what you can get on the shelves now at Wegmans and other stores, versus what you're doing on the clean side? Is there overlap, but also standalone islands?
Yeah, there's a bit of overlap and also standalone islands. I think each location is kind of finding its identity a bit within the other half umbrella. I think every now and then all of us still brew some of the classics, the All Citras, the Green Cities, things like that. But I think we've really kind of created some of our own little fun series up here. For example, we have like our Chroma series, which is all kind of single hop focused, a pretty pared down malt bill, usually just some Pilsner, some white wheat, just to really let the hops shine. And I think that's been a really fun one for us up here, as well as good and educational for the consumer, just to kind of showcase each of these individual hops, as opposed to loading a new beer with 5-6 different varieties where you can't really pick out the character of just one to determine if you like it or not.
Yeah, I have some of these cans in front of me. Riwaka, Enigma, what is this? Motueka, and something else. Citra. Well, obviously. Triple Citra.
Fun. That one, I thought that one came out really nice.
Okay. I haven't cracked these yet. So I'm this is 10% ABV. That's for after recording. Otherwise the show starts to go off the rails.
Absolutely. That's one for before bed.
Yeah. Is there expectations for the people who walk through the door, though? I mean, now that Other Half is as big as it's gotten, where I can get Other Half beers now in my local package store here in Jersey, which just is weird.
Yeah, absolutely.
To me, but it's in Wegmans and it's in all of these other places where you don't have to wait in line anymore. Is there still a desire to make some of these beers where people will show up early and grab them, or are you all at a place now where people are going to show up, they're going to be happy whatever you have, and there's not necessarily going to be the rush on your door to get them first or to tick them first or whatever?
I think there's always the desire to make some beers here and there that are still gonna still bring people out, still kind of give people that special feeling and kind of that nostalgic feeling of those like days of line culture that don't seem to be around as much anymore. I think these days it's a lot more kind of like event focused and things of those of that nature. But it's hard to kind of maintain that sort of special feeling with the beers that we're brewing, all the time at this point. I think the pandemic changed a lot of things for a lot of people. So I think the pandemic combined with growth into all these different facilities and all these different states and different markets changed things for sure. But I think in a way having, Green City where you can buy that everywhere and people seeing that, it makes some of those other beers a bit more special. Like we just had our 8th anniversary not that long ago where we put out a pretty solid lineup across the different breweries of special collaborations and things along those lines that I think really got people excited. And I think it was the first time in quite a bit that I'd seen people that hyped about, a lot of these beers and seeing these beers sell out and people lining up for them. It was a great feeling. So I guess a bit of both,
Are IPAs still ruling the roost for what you're making up there and what's moving fastest?
Yeah, definitely. I definitely think there's, that's been our bread and butter and continues to be. I definitely feel like we're starting to see a bit of a trend of people starting to enjoy lagers a bit more. Our DC location has a lot larger capacity than we do or than even Brooklyn does. So they're doing a lot of the lagers out there, which has been great. But yeah, it seems like people are starting to lean a little bit towards kind of lower ABV IPAs. as well as our lagers, which are also crushing it. Whereas, a few years ago, triple IPAs was kind of what people seem to want the most.
Yeah. That's got to present some fun challenges for you all.
Yeah,
Hacking in the
definitely.
flavor, but moving to a lower ABV.
Yeah, absolutely. I think luckily we're always blessed each year to select some of the best hops that are available in the country and in the world. So that's been an important part of kind of maintaining a high quality of flavor, regardless of ABV. And I think, yeah.
Let me ask you about hop selection then. With multiple locations, we started off by talking about how you're part of the family, but you're unique in your own way.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to other head brewers at the other locations, are there conversations that you all have before harvest of like, hey, I need a lot more, X than maybe you do? Is there horse trading that goes on? Is it you all just contract a lot of hops and it sits in a central location for whoever needs it? How does that work with multiple locations and multiple brewers with multiple? I was going to say personalities, but that's not the different personalities is probably
Yeah, I think each year when we go out, obviously the pandemic has changed things a bit and the expansion to multiple different locations, but there was a while where all the head brewers would go out with Sam, our brewmaster, and do selection. And unfortunately, this year I didn't get a chance to go out, but Sam provided us like a great rundown of all the different selections we made and sensory notes and things along those lines. And for the most part, I mean, they sit with our hop suppliers. We can kind of order what we need as we need it, based off what our schedule is and what's coming up. But there is definitely a sense where if there's only a certain amount of one special lot and of some special citra, per se, and DC is doing a bunch of all citra that we really want to come out super nice for the whole year. A lot more of that will be allotted to them. But for the most part, we share everything, pretty equally, proportional to our size. And if we need anything from each other, we move beer around with trucks between all the breweries as well, pretty well. So, we can ship stuff between us pretty easily, and it works out nice. It's a pretty collaborative and kind of organic experience moving the hops around.
The pandemic has, because you haven't really been able to open up the place and fully embrace the place in the way that you wanted. I was talking to some of your colleagues when I was there. They're saying with all the acreage that you could have 200-300 people hanging out, all socially distanced, just by nature of the land that you have, which has got to have been helpful during the pandemic. But as you think about, hopefully things getting a little bit better and whatever normal is going to be, what would you like to see happen at the brewery? What are things that you were hoping, you could do early on that you haven't been able to, that maybe you can as we start to get into some of these warmer months?
I think kind of what I touched on earlier with really kind of taking advantage of the land we have there and kind of designing in a smart way areas where people can not only hang out amongst amongst the beautiful landscape, but also where we can plant trees and bushes and start cultivating our own kind of fruit and products there that we can then kind of bring back into the beer. So I would love to see, us plant 100 different fruit trees back there, and really start to think about how we and our customers can interact with that landscape, because there's a lot of unused space back there. We can continue putting picnic tables around, which is great. And it's great to have a place where people can sit, but I think doing something a little more interesting in that area, I think it'd be amazing. Hey, if we got some farm animals down the line, some goats, some chickens, and really just kind of tried to try to play up the full potential of what that place can be, and the type of area that it's located in.
That's cool. You mentioned brown ales and red ales and people getting excited. Is there a style of beer that you've been wanting to make at this location that you just haven't gotten around to yet?
I'd have to think on that one for a while.
Okay.
I think, through that mixed firm program, I've been able to have quite the creative outlet thus far. I would love to make some more lagers up here myself,
Okay.
Black lager or something along those lines, or some smoked beers. I think that could be a lot of fun as well.
Pandering to the right audience. I like it.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Well, I mean, with local maltsters, you could probably get some pretty good local smoked malt.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. There's a lot of opportunity out there. And I don't know. Yeah. Things along those lines, I think could be fun. I think in addition to the mixed firm project, if we started brewing some very small batch, clean styles like that, to kind of give a little more variety to our tap list, that could be a lot of fun as well. Because I think we have 20 taps or so, and usually, 15 to 18 are IPAs. So if we could get a little more of a mix in there, just for one or two lines, and start brewing some more interesting stuff like that, or different stuff, I guess you should say. I think that would be a lot of fun. So who knows? Sam, if you're listening, let me brew a smoked beer.
Yes, absolutely. I'll send him a note after this goes up to remind him that you should brew a smoked beer. I've been asking folks on the show as we start to wrap up here. We've been setting it up by saying a couple of months back, my wife and I started rewatching The Good Place, and there's this whole concept on the show of the green door, where you can walk through a green door and be anywhere at any time with anybody that you wanted. And so if such a thing existed on this plane of existence, and after this conversation ended, you could walk through a green door and be at any pub or any brewery with anybody that you wanted, where would you go? Who would you want to be with?
Let me think about that one for a second. I feel like I don't know. I'd like to be taken to Belgium. I'd love to go to Driefonteinen, which I've never been to. And I think I'd probably like to be there with my brothers, who are the ones who kind of got me into beer, and just enjoying some lambic and goose with them.
I like that. That's it's a good place, and it sounds like good company. I hope you get to do that one of these days. Absolutely, me too. Thanks for taking the time. Thanks for these for these beers, and for telling me the stories behind them. And really, what a cool spot. I hope everybody has a chance to come up and visit. Yeah. Likewise. I hope you had a great time there, and hopefully we get a chance to catch up over a beer in person sometime soon. I'm always looking for new spots to visit, and this conversation about multiple locations got me thinking. Have you visited a brewery that is a second or third location from the original? How is it different? How is it complementary? What did you enjoy about the experience? You can tell me about it. It's John Hall. That's JOHNHOLL at beeredge.com if you like email, or you can get with me on Twitter at John_Hall. Be sure to check out beeredge.com for our This Week in Rauk Beer and Defend Pilsner merch, and to follow along on social media at The Beer Edge. And of course, This Week in Rauk Beer is also online. The Facebook group is easy to search, and on Twitter and Instagram, it's at TW Rauk Beer. We're able to bring you this show each week thanks to the companies that want to support independent journalism in the beer space. If you'd like to learn more about our surprisingly affordable rates, please reach out to sponsor@beeredge.com. And also be sure to check out Stomp Stickers. Stomp is a proud member of the Brewers Association that produces a wide variety of printed brewery products, such as beer labels, keg collars, coasters, beer boxes, and much more. Stomp's website features an easy-to-use design tool, low quantity orders, fast turnaround times, and free domestic shipping. Visit stompstickers.com and use code CRAFTBEER15 for 15% off of your first order. Athletic Brewing Company's innovative process allows them to brew great-tasting craft beer without the alcohol. From IPAs to stouts to golden ales and more, they offer a full selection of beers starting at only 50 calories. Now you can keep your head clear and enjoy the refreshing taste of beer anytime, anywhere. Place an order today at athleticbrewing.com and get free shipping on 2 6-packs or more. New customers can also get 10% off of their entire order with code BEEREDGE10. Limit 1 per customer. And NZ Hops. It's a cooperative of master growers whose legend and cultivars have been crafted for over 150 years with creativity and passion to produce some of the world's finest hops. With a dedicated hop breeding program and farming knowledge handed down through the generations, the current day master growers proudly provide 18 unique New Zealand hop varieties to the world. Visit nzhops.co.nz, or you can find them on Instagram, Facebook, or LinkedIn at NZHops Ltd to learn more. A reminder, check out the Beer Edge podcast with Andy Crouch. Steal This Beer has new episodes every Monday, and the BYO Nano podcast comes out on the 15th of every month. On this show, Nate Schweber does the music, Jeff Quinn designed the logo, and I'm John Hall. New episodes release every Wednesday, and that's when I'm going to be back again to drink beer and to think beer.